Hey everyone, I'm Zenith Priest, and welcome to my introduction for Wandering Voice Keen's Delirium, where I will give you insight into the nature of the spirit and show you how to drive the invaders insane by turn 5. Wandering Voice is a high complexity spirit that relies heavily on control and fear to solve the island's various problems and threats. We always start with the presence in land 6 and 7 of our board, with our Incarna in land 6. Despite always being in the same numbers, some boards will start with a town, which feels a bit different. Our playstyle sees our Incarna constantly roaming around the island, sowing strife in our wake. As one of only a few spirits without the ability to manipulate Dahan in any fashion, we'll need to be as precise as we can with our maneuverings, and by extension our presence placements. As a Clarion voice given form, we begin with Incarna on the island, which may always count as a sacred site, and will isolate lands once empowered. As a wander, we actively spread tumult and delusion, adding strife to an invader as we enter their lands. The Dahan are similarly affected and are unable to coordinate counterattacks in lands with strife if we are still in the area. When we add strife to non-city invaders, they are instilled with senseless roaming, allowing us to push them to another land if we so choose. The standard reclaim option for our growth powers, in addition to providing energy, allows us to add or move our Incarna to one of our presence. While moving it will be the more common occurrence, we can consider allowing our Incarna to be a sacred site and temporarily destroyed during a ravage or event, keeping our presence position intact. The next option lets us place two presents, the first one at range and the second one close by. Given our ability to effectively relocate our Incarna at will, placing them where their invaders are or will be allows more options for our strife-inducing capabilities. Lastly, we can gain a power while adding presence up to 2 away, in addition to acquiring energy and air. Good for those incremental gains along the presence tracks, there also allows for higher tiers on our innate powers. Those presence tracks start out pretty sparse, with no passive energy and only a single card play. Both open up in the beginning, with further gains needing the middle growth option to see immediately. Of note, at the end of the top track is the ability to push our Incarna every turn, adding extra senseless roaming effects. And in the bottom track, we see a reclaim option before opening up 4 card plays. Those card plays are what we'll be seeking this build, taking a winding path of reclaiming after opening up both tracks, reclaiming again after opening 2 more from the bottom track, and then finally we'll be clearing the bottom track on turn 5. The reclaim has tactical value, allowing us to move out of the way of Dahan's counterattacks while also adding strife to the land we move to, and the card plays will allow us the highest threshold of both our innate powers. The first of these is Inscrutable Journeying, which mostly just allows us to push our Incarna to spread tumult and delusion, with some senseless roaming here and there. With enough elements though, we get to empower our Incarna, isolating its land for the rest of the game. While the demo game ends at that time, as the difficulties increase and the games go longer, this extra boost can become quite useful. Our other innate power is a mind-shattering song, which deals fear and or damage to distract invaders close to our sacred site, based on our sun and moon counts. And the last threshold lets us destroy striped invaders outright, one for each pair of sun and moon. When we exhale confusion and delirium, we add to the fear count and stop any striped invaders from ravaging. Useful for ravaging lands without Dahan, or when we can't get out of the Dahan's way, this ensures the strife remains in place for our mind-shattering song. Turmoil's Touch lets another spirit take the top card of the minor deck for a small price before we do the same. Perhaps more importantly, this provides each of our primary elements and the crucial leaf necessary to empower our Incarna. Frightful Keening allows us to push our Incarna to spread tumult and delusion, adding fear if we do. Useful for new problems arising nearby. Lastly, if we can't reach with our Incarna, then we can Twist Perceptions, adding strife near any of our presence. Whichever invader we strife will get to push, even a city, but non-cities can be pushed first with our senseless roaming, eating them across the island, as my friend would say. Taken together, our innate powers and special rules form the backbone of our strategy, mitigating ravages or builds by combining Inscrutable Journeying, Tumult and Misery, and senseless roaming, while our mind-shattering song assaults the invaders outright. The unique powers provide tactical support, adding even more strife and ensuring the strife sticks when we need it to. Terror level 1 victories can be tricky but doable, but our fear output generally puts Terror level 3 within easy reach. And with that, let's get started on a demo game. With the Incarna, we'll need to at least play with the Nature Incarnate expansion, but I've turned the events off to simplify our decisions during play. This gives us access to command beasts, but we shouldn't really need its use. Alright, let's begin. Turn 1. With 2 presence placements, we'll want to put the first one in a prime location to expand our reach, typically with the city for free strife on the reclaim. If they've explored there, it'll be next turn, otherwise we'll come back to it later. The other one will usually be for the more immediate concern, looking at one of the new explorers to stop them from ravaging after they build. If we can, we'd rather personally stop the land without Dahan to let them take care of the other one. Since that is possible here, let's put our first presence in the city and the second one in E4. With allies, consider what the current problems actually are and what your fellow spirits may have trouble with. For powers, we have the energy to decide between Twisted Perceptions, which will strife and push an invader to be dealt with later, or Frightful Keening, also letting us strife an invader. The primary difference is the second sun that Frightful Keening provides, allowing us to destroy a town first thing. I personally like these early tempo swings, though there are times when you won't be able to push yourself where you need, when Twisted Perceptions will be the better play. Sometimes, our inscrutable journeying will give us an opportunity to pocket one of the lands that hasn't explored yet. While not a guarantee, look to play the odds whenever possible. For example, if the mountains had explored, then we could push the jungle town into E1, stopping E6 and E8 from exploring. On the slow phase, begin with Turmoil's Touch, discarding the rest of our hand to gain a couple powers. Hopefully, we find an heir, but it's still workable if we don't. With that out of the way, we can now destroy the town we strifed earlier before our Frightful Keening adds its protection to the upper wetland, earning our first fear card. Turn 2. With no cards in hand, we reclaim, relocating to the ravaging land we marked earlier and pushing the town out. If the ravaging land has strifed buildings without Dahan to clear them, we'll pick Exhale, Confusion, and Delirium, but most of the time, we'll lead with Turmoil's Touch again, paired with either Frightful Keening or Twisted Perceptions. We can also consider the powers we gained, just keep in mind the trade-off if we don't play any heir. This time, let's play Call to Bloodshed. It won't add the same amount of fear as if we played Frightful Keening, but it still takes out the town and saves the heir power for later. Our inscrutable journeying will take us into the upper mountains, pushing the explorer into the jungles before we see what our fear has wrought. Dahan Enheartened lets us gather Dahan into the jungles, which will increase our damage with Call to Bloodshed. Seems good? And after the invaders take their turn, let's see what Turmoil's Touch provides. We only want to use it once this time, so if we did find a bunch of air powers, we'll still need to plan what our plays are next turn and discarding what's left. Here, the choice is simple. After our planned Call to Bloodshed, we proceed. Turn 3. With our presence placements this time, we want to establish a sacred site and place presence into land types not yet acquired. The sacred site increases our options for mind-shattering song, so consider where your journeying will take you before deciding. The other presence increases our odds of catching the next explorer when we reclaim, so look to places that could be a problem. Playing our hand, we proceed. The warning says we don't have any striped invaders, but we will soon enough. Push our Incarna into the jungle to clear it, then again into the mountain to keep the city from ravaging once we exhale Confusion and Delirium. This gives us our second fear card, Belief Takes Root, adding defense to our lands. In retrospect, we could have moved into the mountains first, before the jungle, putting us in a position to guarantee value out of Frightful Keening. The odds are still in our favor, but a wetland explorer would have denied us the extra fear. Anyway, we could use Twisted Perceptions to strife the city and win when the jungles ravage, but if the sands were ravaging, we wouldn't be so lucky, so let's continue to see us through to turn 5. Instead, we'll leave the invaders in place, then use Frightful Keening to clear the sands. Our mind-shattering song will trigger tier level 2 before we pick off a couple of explorers. Turn 4. After pushing an explorer into the jungle, notice that with our 3 unique sun powers, we have enough damage to destroy the city on the slow phase, giving us another potential win condition to look for if we can keep everything from building. Since we can't, we'll need to consider our power choices carefully. Overextending will deny us our empowerment, but we still need to be able to control the board. Games where we can't find air make it a bit tricky, but a good rule of thumb if you don't want to tally elements is to only play one of our unique powers this turn. Especially keep track of Turmoil's Touch and Frightful Keening, as they possess the only means of fire and leaf. This game, Weep for What Is Lost is free and clears the wetlands if we need, and Call to Bloodshed can simplify the flanking coasts. None of these are strictly necessary, but it's good to know we have options even without ideal elements. Rounding out the plays with Turmoil's Touch, let's continue to the fast phase and move out of the way of the Dahan in the jungles. Our last fear card to resolve is Restlessness, which could let us clear the wetland now, but we have plans for that guy where they are. After the Dahan cleared the jungle, and the invaders built a town, we have the last relevant exploration. Pushing the explorer out of the wetland, we don't really have another use for Call to Bloodshed, so we can destroy it as well instead of waiting for the Ravage. Turmoil's Touch isn't really necessary at this point in the game, but it's a good card to play whenever you find the space. Turn 5, our Crescendo. If we haven't already expanded into other boards, here is another opportunity, as we should have our board in an ideal setup. Here, let's just fill out the blank spots for fun, and then reclaim Turmoil's Touch. Playing our hand will empower our Incarna, isolating whatever land it ends up on, as well as granting the final tier of Mind-Shattering Song, destroying a Strat invader for each pair of Sun and Moon we have. With 3 such pair, on top of dealing the initial damage, we will be able to handle a fair amount of invaders moving forward. Journeying into the mountains seals the town's fate as we run away to let the Dahan work, and exhaling Confusion and Delirium keeps the remaining invaders marked for destruction in the slow phase. With Twist Perceptions and Frightful Keening, we should be able to gather any stragglers to the mountains to deal our final blow. Some final thoughts for Wandering Voice Keen's Delirium. While there were faster ways to win this particular game, I was more concerned with highlighting the strategy to its conclusion. With our Incarna empowered, we're stopping new explorers, and the combination of pushing striped invaders into a single place while hammering them with the full might of our Mind-Shattering Song puts us in a really good position for more difficult games that may extend beyond turn 5. And hopefully, we've managed to extend our hand via Turmoil's Touch with some useful options. I said this earlier, but it's worth repeating, that since we have the option to add Wandering Voices Incarna, this allows us to choose its destruction for certain event cards while simply remanifesting on the reclaim. Our presence placements are about being able to capitalize on situations as they present themselves, so consider what those options may look like before deciding. And if everything seems ideal, be sure to expand outward to help your allies. You have the range, so there's no excuse. Certain allies, namely Ocean's Hungry Grasp, will boost the value of Twist Perceptions significantly, pushing coastal cities or even inland towns to feed their waiting maw. Alright everyone, that's all I've got this time. Hope you gained some insight, and good luck in your next games.